Hi, one more time, everyone. Here we are, and I hope you has been a fun space with design discussion. Now we are going to continue with this block B of time, but I want also to introduce to you some of the next activities that we are going to have in order to be on tune on the next minutes. Uh, After the fireside chat, we are going to have also the Young Professional Talks and also the Speak Networking. So be tuned, please, in order to know more people around the globe. And also, we are going to have three amazing workshops led by our guests in this Learn Festival. So now I want to introduce Jadion, that is going to be our host with Mauricio in this fireside chat.
Thank you very much, Silvana. Hello, everyone, again. I'm excited to introduce a very special guest for our fireside chat, Dr. Mauricio Menhez. He's the Service Design Director of Client Journeys and Innovation at Truist Financial Corporation, the sixth largest bank in the United States. And he also has a very long academic career, including many years of experience as SCAD's Service Design MFA Program Coordinator. He has overseen hundreds of student projects, classes, and helped hundreds of students around the world get jobs in service design. And today, he's here to answer your questions. Let's bring him on stage. How's it going,
Hello.
Mauricio?
Happy to be here. Really, really excited. You're the students organization is killing. Really proud of the work you did.
Thank you so much. Attendees, now is the perfect time to have your questions answered by a true master of service design. Please enter your questions in the chat. Are you confused about service design's connection to the big picture or stuck on a project? Mauricio is truly an expert full of insights and helpful perspectives, so definitely submit your questions. I'll start it off with a question from myself. Mauricio, many times you've emphasized that learning can be a slow process and that doesn't result in instant success. Why do you feel this perspective is important?
One of my favorite quotes from, it's not a quote, it's a summary of a larger paragraph from Nietzsche. And it's summarized like life is nothing but a path to knowledge. Right? So the life is a learning process. And seeing things, I always love when a situation happens that I am presented to a blind spot or something that I didn't know. And out of just pleasure of learning, I think it should be the longest path possible. Right? Like you're having fun, you don't want it to end. I don't want to learn everything. It will be a mistake, right? At least in my opinion. But having the pleasure, stay curious, right? It's someone that wants to learn more. So why rush? There's always something else to add, to know more, to be more mindful. So I don't know. I love learning.
So for you, it's like a hobby, I guess.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's life is nothing but a path to knowledge, right? So it's to be alive for me. It's to learn something, to be learning. And anyway, we have Birgit here. How many opportunities she creates for all of us to learn. Everybody that I admire and I look for are people that as I see it, at least, they are continuously learning. So it's always a way to honor these people, to keep learning too. Right?
So how does this exciting love of learning then connect to university, where you're trying to get a job, you want to land in a position where you can become financially independent and meet your bottom line?
Yeah. There have been a series of discussion. Should I get a degree? Now there are career paths for jobs that don't require official degree. I think this is a very misplaced discussion, right? You should go to get a degree to live better, to have a better life, to be able to understand whenever you don't get a job or something goes wrong, and you understand you're a better person, right? And I've seen this broader perspective in education help people getting jobs and better jobs and being more successful at the job whatever job they got, right? And if you have, that's the difference between education, let's say, and training, right? And sometimes to get a job, you become too much reductionist, right? It's like a machine. You're training to do something without knowing why, without being able to see the bigger picture, to understand the context where you're in. So at least in my opinion, it's not a smart discussion. Should I go towards a more official education? There are things that you can, as we always mention in class when I'm teaching, I say the role for you to be during these 4 years, or how long it takes for you to get a degree, sharing time and space with certain people, is to provide you a chance to see how they react, who they are, right? The fit into a community, right? That has a mandate, that has a profession at the end connected. But there are things that if it's too simple for you to learn by yourself without having contact with other people, just watching a YouTube video or read something, it is cheap knowledge. It's something that will be a machine could do, right? If it's that simple that you can just follow mindlessly a sequence of steps, you will be replaced by a machine. Whatever job you're preparing, that just that is enough, you're preparing for a job that will die, right? That will disappear. And we certainly will see a ton of jobs disappearing, and mostly the ones that are based on algorithms, right? Things that can be repeated, they will disappear. In that sense, this broader education, it's even better, right? You're safe because you will be able to switch careers, switch jobs, and switch things, ways of doing, because you have a broader knowledge. Right? You're a more well-rounded person. So even in terms of job safety, go for a broader knowledge that spans beyond what you're actually working. It's a safety net, let's say.
That's a super cool perspective. And also reminds me
I
of
tend to add also that um, a degree is something that no one will ever be able to take from you, right? It's the only quote unquote property. But there's, if you go bankrupt, everything goes wrong, no one will take that from you. And if you have a training or a certification, a very narrow, specific role, probably this role will uh, become outdated, and the certification. In my age, I've been trained in so many tools and so many uh, frameworks that are not valid anymore. And anyway, don't get me started in going to this.
looks like we have an awesome question here from Sayandana. I'll read it out. I was wondering, what is the best way to expand your learnings from what you learn as a student to being a practicing professional?
Yeah, being exposed, right? Sharing time and space with people. Right? That's the experience that will uh, enable you to place or contextualize whatever theory you've learned, right? And one of my go-to, I don't know if she meant this, but there's this famous saying that, oh, in theory, now in practice, the theory is different, right? Oh, yeah, you study the theory, but the practice is different. Clearly, at least for me, this means, oh, you didn't study enough, and because you don't know enough, you're trying to apply the wrong theory for the practice, right? It would be like someone saying, oh, in theory, in practice, the theory is different. It would be like saying, oh, in theory, the earth revolves around the sun, but in practice is different. No, there isn't. If it's in theory, the practice, it should be by this theory. What probably is happening is like you don't know enough and you're trying to apply the wrong theory for the practice. Right? I don't know if Sayanda, the core of her question was, oh, what the theory and practice have to do. And anyway, I hope I
Yeah, totally. We can jump
no,
to
and
one.
that's awesome, Jihin. Sometimes the idea of learning can be overwhelming too, as well, right? And if we go back to Nietzsche, you can replace learning by life. Sometimes the idea of living can be overwhelming, right? So that's it, right? There, it's no, it's not for babies, right? It's it's a it's a life. Life is not simple.
I don't know if you want me to read this one out, Mauricio.
What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you faced as a service designer? And which design stage do you like the most? The biggest challenge is facing people or organizations or communities that think that everything should work as a machine, right? A very linear process in a very clear sequence of things. And my go-to, unfortunately, you can't see the chair, but I always make the question, what is a chair, right? And people tend to say, oh, something to sit on. Very simple, straightforward. I got it. It's done. And you sit on top of a desk or a table and say, is this a chair? And people, no, it's not a chair. Okay, but you just told me very shortly and briefly and sharp that a chair is something to sit on. No, but you have to add more stuff, right? So this process, I guess, in a service effort, right? And I'm leading many now. I was compiling how many projects we are running at the same time here. In terms of just activities, at the same time, we're running 200 activities in at least 6 different areas. And the stage that I think it's the most challenging and for me the most exciting is to bring the people, the community that is around these efforts, to realize that, hey, we need to take more into account than this short term, this specific website or product. Right?
Here the questions come flooding in, starting from Chongyuan Yin. I want to know how to educate the clients to realize the value of service design and let them to follow the service design framework, or enable them to follow and trust our process.
So how to educate? Again, I'm very much, let's say, worried or wary of patronizing, right? We're not there to educate anyone. I always, I don't know if you remember, Jaden, but I used to tell in class, meet them where they are, right? If you have to meet them where they are, you have to understand them, but don't forget that you have a mission, right? You can't just meet where they are and become one of them. You have to meet where they are and start building a bridge back to an emancipatory state, right? A new stage. Again, changing. The only constant is change, right? So this constant change that will happen no matter what would be safer, healthier, better if we are aware of this and try somehow to contribute to the change that will happen anyway. So the best way to share this view with the clients, one thing that I like to do is having the sweaty, what I call my bad nicknames, sweaty and smelly stakeholder map, right? You're starting a project. So I have clients, right? My immediate clients, and they have customers, right? Or clients. First, understand what are these 3 people that are closer to you need to be happy. Right? See what they are facing, try to understand their context, and from there, build a path, a bridge to a preferable state, right? Preferable future. And that's, I love the concept of grassroots, start small, make them happy. One thing that you refer to my work at SCAD, right? When I started, we had a cohort of 6 grad students in the program, cohort. And my goal was to make these 6 students happy. When I left in last December, we had a cohort of 72, right? And I'm completely confident that this grassroots, making those 6 first students happy, then making 8 students happy, and 12 students led to 72, right? More than tenfold increase in the program. And we're doing the same here at Truist. Let's understand what our teammates, right, the employers like us, are facing, fix for them, make them happy, and then add more people and increase the size of the smelly and sweaty stakeholder map in small increments. Right? Oh, but it takes too long, and my problem is this, and I want to develop that, and the problem they are facing has nothing to do with what I want to achieve. Yeah, but if you don't fix this, you don't get their commitment, right? The effectual network. If you want to know more about what I'm trying to describe, check Sarah Sarasvati and her research on effectual networks. It's marvelous, and it works like magic. Right? It's the practice and the theory happily together.
Oh, thank you, Mauricio. So awesome. At this rate, though, we'll only answer 3 questions. You mind if we jump into some new ones?
Yeah.
All right. Alex asks, hi, Mauricio. Which has been your most memorable project? Maybe not the best, or the outcome wasn't the desired one, but the one that you thought about the most, or maybe that you thought the most of.
I am really privileged. I've been involved in so many awesome projects. Maybe they are not awesome, but I love so much to do. You know, like a kid that has this broken toy, but it's so beautiful and it is so enjoyable. But I guess one project, and Birgit might have some say on this, was I think it's a tipping point, at least in my life. One of them was organizing or being the team that organized the Paris conference in 2012 in Paris. It's a watershed moment in my life. So if I survive this, I can survive anything. And another one is in my previous life, before teaching. So taking the development of the service design program, the grad service design program. In my previous life as project manager, I had to fire many people as a manager, right? And when you're teaching, you can't fire your team, right? So as Jaden mentioned, we manage hundreds of projects at the same time. The teaching, that growing the program, structuring this, and not being able to fire students led me to regret very much all the people that I fired in my previous life. I said, oh my God, I threw the water with the baby. There were clear ways to enable these employees to perform better. So I hope my team today at Truist will take advantage of at least my understanding of there's always space to. It's a human being, right? You can't throw a human being away. There are ways to work with.
Ashita Das, she has a question. What would you say about people hiring service designers to be just UX designers with a fancy tagline as service designer? I faced it a few days back.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Nishita. So you know how I make the distinction between UX and service, right, and customer experience in broad strokes. User experience, right? You cannot use humans, right, or you should not use another human. So user experience is and Don Norman is on that clearly, right? Very clearly. If you don't know, Don Norman is the kind of the head behind the concept of user experience, and um, and we all, not we all, I agree with him saying that user experience can only be applied between a human and an object, a website or an interface, a computer, something. Customer experience is always applied to follow the money, right? It's very transactional, both of unquestionable importance, right? But there are many situations that a broader perspective must be entertained. So I don't care very much if you're having a badge as user experience or service design and doing, as long as you know that these are three different games and you know how to switch the hat, right? Whenever, if you are under the label of service design and you're doing basically human to object interaction, okay, you're working in one of these areas that are important, right? Uh, and I hope that this person that was hired as service designer just working on human to computer, human object interactions, uh, will be able to take this step back and say, okay, and when someone needs to talk to someone else, another human, right? Is this, uh, am I switching hats here? In English, here in the US, it makes the joke is sounds better, but we call soccer. I'm from Brazil, right? In Europe, we call football as soccer, and here they call football the American rugby, right? It's not what we call football. And sometimes I see um, people mistakenly saying that, no, football from European or South American perspective is the same than football. It's all football, right? And knowing these differences enables you to switch. Okay, I'm not playing soccer here. I'm playing American football, right? So going back to the meeting people where they are, right? Don't complain too much. Oh yeah, right? Enable people, meet them, but don't forget that you have a mission to accomplish, right? Don't be judgmental and say, oh yeah, they're high. If there's a space to insert service design, let's take advantage.
That's a big perspective.
Hello. Yeah.
Our friend Gwen here with a question.
Awesome.
When you or your team ever get stuck in a difficult challenge in a project, lack of resources, buy-in, lack of alignment, what are your go-to ways to get unstuck?
Awesome question, Gwen. And one of my favorite quotes is a quote from Peter Drucker, right? Goes something like, we all work under very restrictive conditions of time, resources, and knowledge, but there's always something meaningful, pertinent, and effective to be done, right? I when I say meet where they are, is mostly because of this. You will be stuck. You will have challenges. You will have lack of resources. And what the marvelous part of knowing what design is profoundly, right, is acknowledging this. Oh, it's an iterative process that I don't have to know the answer at the beginning. The technical term will be evolutionary epistemology, right? A way to get about into the world that is not defined at the beginning but at the end. Right? So, okay, try this, try that. The other day I started a project, and a teammate that is not a designer was very frustrated because we both were providing something, a deliverable for an internal client, and he was really frustrated. Oh, we had to do all these things, and we no, and at the end it was just this. And I said, and I had this moment of putting my faculty hat back and say, hey, this is design. We just knew, now we know all the things that this client doesn't like, right? Not knowing what not to do is a process. It's a game, right? So the squiggle, I showed him the squiggle. No, we start this blind variation, co-evolution of problem and solution space. He has a degree in knowledge management, so I was able to talk to him about a little bit of theory. And so, oh, okay. So all the things that didn't work added to the picture, right? Enabled us. Now, next time that we interact with the same client, we know a ton of things that should not be tried or pushed. Right?
Awesome perspectives. All right, can I challenge you to answer a question in like 2 minutes?
Goodness, you know it's not possible. I'll try.
Okay, yeah, because it's a good one. Actually, Daniela here has posted her question twice. So if we could show that one, that would be wonderful.
Daniela?
Yes.
Oh.
Which soft skills do you consider more relevant for service design? Sometimes we're very focused about the tools, methodologies, and theory, but what soft skills do you need out there considering the persuasive component as a service designer?
Again, Daniela, I don't make a difference between theory, methodology, and soft skills, right? All are knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? So for me, they're just a spectrum of knowledge, right? And in terms of soft skill, so why I like to start with the smelly and sweaty stakeholder map, right? Something really ordinary from the daily lives of people that will need to be contributing to whatever we're having to do, is because if at first they will provide the limits for this system, the service system, the boundaries. And in order for me to understand them, the soft skill is this, right? Being open, not judgmental, right? Understand. The other day I was talking to
Mauricio.
Okay.
This has been over a minute.
Knowledge of people, knowing, but very. I don't like the word empathy, and Don Norman has a very interesting thing that he's lashing out on empathy and he starts the text saying, I'm married for 35 years and I still don't know my wife well. How come I can empathize with someone that I've just met, right? So anyway, but you can...
I think
enough.
I hate to cut you off because I love it.
Man.
But yeah, we got to move on in the program here. So thank you so much for your thoughts and perspective, Mauricio.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for the great questions. We'll have a short 5-minute break and then resume soon for our first Young Professional Talks. Thank you again.
Thank you. Awesome. Congratulations, people. Awesome event.
right, so welcome back everyone to the Service Design Learning Fest 2022. I'm Ashley Montalvo, a service design student and organizer. Please welcome our speakers, Maria, Nia, and Matia, for our first Young Professional Talk session, following a wrap-up Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm so glad you could make it to our global discussion event. I am super excited to hear and learn from students and professionals across the globe today. I am Ishita, a service design student from SCAD. In this session, we are going to hear from three spectacular young professionals from the field of service design and different part of the world talk and discuss about their experiences and learning from this discipline. We have Maria from Italy, Nia from Peru, and Mattia from London. We will have a question answer round at the end. You can drop your questions in the chat options, features by Hopin. And after all the three talks, we are going to have your questions answered by these young professionals. This is the best opportunity for students who are looking to get into service design field or looking to change their field and gather their insights from these professionals. So do not forget to keep posting your questions in the chat section in the platform. Our first speaker is Maria. Thank you for joining Maria today. Thank you for joining Maria. The stage is all yours now.
Hello. Thank you so much. I will share my screen. Can you see it? I think that it looks kind of bad. Okay. Well, we are going to work through it. Sometimes can change. I thought that I was uploading maybe the good file. Yes, it's supposed to. Let's see. Okay. Well, I will start now. Thank you so much first for the opportunity. I'm Maria Isabel. I'm Peruvian, but right now I'm living in Italy. I have experience in communication science, marketing and strategy, and then I jumped to service design. And I'm part of a community in Lima, Peru that calls Service Design Lima. And I am master in service design, and now I'm working in Italy in a company that calls Innovia that works directly with startups and big company. So sorry for the slides. I think that I uploaded, but sometimes I think that change. Why my keynote it goes like that? Because when I was a kid, before I've been a service designer or before I'm going to communication and strategy, I wanted to be a bridge. But what is a bridge? What's the meaning of the word? Why I wanted to be a bridge? A bridge is a construction that helps us to connect two lands to each other, and even could be a person that can connect with two different things, and at the same time could be a place or means of connection or transition. So when I was a kid, I didn't know what I want to study at that moment, but all that I know it was that I wanted to help people to connect with all the information, the services, and the data that they needed. So in a world that has a lot of services, a lot of information that came from one side to another and can arrive to one person or to another, I wanted to be there and help. I see myself as a bridge, like to help to understand what is the information and try to give it the best that I can. So for me, that was the meaning of the bridge, and I wanted to work in that. I didn't know in that moment how I should work in that because I was a kid. But then when I started to grow up, I noticed some careers that were interesting to me. So one of them was science communication. That's why I studied that. So I was focused in journalism and even in marketing and audiovisual. So despite I'm not good in cameras, I got really nervous talking in front of the camera. I faced that challenge. So I started with journalism because I wanted to be that connection that helped you to have the correct information or a neutral data that helps you to understand what was happening around you and you can make your own decisions. When I was working in that, I was checking to audiovisuals and marketing. And in that part, in my country, digital marketing was really, really important. It started to be an area that all the companies wanted to work with because it was important to have a really good communication strategy. So I started to focus myself more in that part, and I started to connect companies to the final consumer in ways that not just sell the advertisement, even understand and check the position of the company in uncertain moments. In moments of crisis, when they needed to say, okay, we have this position, and communicate to the consumer. So I started to work more in digital strategy. I got more experience in marketing. But when I was working in marketing, I noticed that for me, it wasn't complete. I started to ask myself why brands, why companies are working in some products or some services. How did they think that that will help the people? I wanted to know what was happening. So at the end, I wanted to know what was happening behind the consumers and behind even the perception of the company to create something. So I think that some of you maybe should know this kind of image or an image that could be similar to it. So usually when we interact with services or with products, we always see the front stage. We have an interaction, for example, when we are going to a restaurant, when we are going to a supermarket or some cafeteria. But behind that part of the service, there's a lot of workflows that happens to make that service exist and to arrive to us. So that discipline that can see all the holistic way, all the process is called service design. And yes, that's how I got the knowledge of service design. When I changed my job and suddenly I was asking myself this question, like how the services, how the companies do this, a colleague that was entering in this new job like with me, he explained to me what was service design. So in that moment, I decided to investigate more about service design. So with my experience right now, we know that service design has a lot of meanings. So I will just give you some of my highlights about service design. Service design has a holistic approach. So it doesn't focus in just one part of a service or in just one part of the product. It sees all the steps, all the process, and in that way can think in new solutions or redesign solutions to better experience. It's a co-design process. That means that there are a lot of people involved, not just maybe UI, UX, or just designers, maybe people from HR, people from marketing, people from the commercial side can get involved because we need to know how the business works. It connects businesses to users to create a meaningful interaction and experiences, and at the same time improve the end-to-end human experience, and can be digital or physical. Why I'm saying this? Because when I started to say I'm a service designer, first, people ask me what is a service design, and then they ask me, okay, you're doing just digital. But no, we can even redesign the experience of going to a metro station, to going to a supermarket, etc. So our field has like a lot of things to do, different perspectives, can be physical, can be digital. So when I discovered service design, for me, it was this and more. It was the bridge. For me, it was the bridge that connect different areas, different roles in a company, or even outside a company, like the stakeholders, to understand better the business, the context, and in that way to develop a solution that at the same time connects with the final user and covers that need that they have. So when I started to discover what was service design, I knew that that was my new goal. So I wanted to work directly in create solutions that can cover needs of people and give this added value that people are looking for. But in that moment, that it was like 6 years ago, it came a moment of uncertainty for me. And I think that if you are looking to know more about service design, wherever you are right now, maybe you are facing this. Why? The moment of uncertainty that I have, it was to be a service designer in a non-existent market. Why non-existent market? Because 6 years ago in my country, in Peru, service design was something that no one knows. Even companies weren't talking about human-centered design. They weren't talking about putting the person in the middle. They were developing solutions that maybe they don't cover needs, but they wanted to create a need in the final user. So how I started to think myself, how can I be a service designer? First, without having a career, and even in my country, because they didn't know what was it. I discovered service design because I met two people, exactly two people, that they came from a specialization in service design, but they needed to go to another country to learn more about the discipline. So even the profiles that they have, it was more related to engineer or even to industrial design. And I was a communicator. I came from communication science. So I was thinking how my career can match to something that is more about even innovation. And even I don't work in that. And how can I move to an innovation area? Because things about human design, things about UX, UI, everything in my country at that moment, and I think that in the most of countries that maybe they didn't know about service design at that moment, it was innovation. So how can I work in that if I really want to know more? When I was talking with these two persons, they gave me a really good advisement, a really good suggestion that even I heard in a service design show podcast, that it was, okay, maybe you're not working in service design, but if you really want to know more about service design or you want to apply it, start to apply it in your daily life. So even with the small things, go to a supermarket and maybe something that you are seeing there, you don't like it, start to think from this perspective how you would redesign this part. So I took this advice and I started to work in the marketing area with service design. So that allows me in 2016-17 to work with this mindset that helps me to work in a project in this company with a Peruvian bank in that moment to develop new strategies and solutions about digital platforms to help uncover the real needs of the user. So it was my first approach in a project that we were working more with the methodologies that service design use. And then I changed my job because I received a call from a startup that works in the education sector. So they were working in a platform to help a student to connect with the courses that they want and to create their own career. So I started to work with the methodologies there. I designed, with the help of my colleagues, the journey of the students to understand what were their needs, their problems, and how can we help them. And with that journey of these different students, we started to redesign the platform of this startup. So we redesigned even the content, we redesigned the communication and the services that they gave in a digital way. And that experience allowed me to move directly to service design because at the end of 2018, I started to talk with a girl that was service designer. And in 2019, I entered to the company that she was working. It was a Spanish company that has offices in Peru. And I started to work as a service designer because of all the previous work that I was doing. And that helps me even to help some universities in Peru to redesign the educational system and even to redesign the business model of different companies. With that, I work even with Service Design Lima, and we decided to connect that information to people that wanted to know more, and we started to work with different projects around the world. We work in the Global Service Jam. So after that, I decided to make a service design master, but COVID arrived. So how COVID helped me to work in this moment? It was a really uncertain moment because it impacted me in the way that I was working and studying at the same time in lockdown. And a lot of people suffered different situations. A lot of people started to telecommute for first time. They didn't know how to do it in digital. And even our schedule changed a lot. So in my master, they decided to make us a challenge. So how can we redesign a new future for these people? So I started to think more, how was people working in that moment? We didn't know what was happening behind the screen. So I decided to start to create solutions in this moment of uncertainty that can work and help people. So I decided to work with employees in Italy and with the companies too. So employees wanted to change the context fast, and at the same time want the support of the company. And at the same time, companies want to be closer to the employees and the HR departments that they were working more in that moment. So I assumed the challenge of these two areas and started to create a solution with different solutions that work right now to create this bond and create a better culture in this moment of uncertainty. So what I create, it calls Compact. It's a service that through different touch points that could be services that already exist, helps you to improve the culture of the companies. So I create a bridge that it helps employees and companies to understand better the situation and create better cultures through guidelines and tools. So in that way, I start to see myself like, okay, I wanted to be a bridge, so I want to implement this to help in this moment of uncertainty. And despite it was a master project, I decided to implement even in the company that I was working. And it was really helpful because at the end, we started to give even more activities together to try to help each other, despite I was in Italy and they in Peru. And that allows me to understand better important things of the service. It helps me to understand that unreal situations can happen for all of us, but we need to react as fast as we can, but listening and examining the context and understand what is people feeling at that moment. In that way, understand that emotional and mental health help us to understand better people. So it's a topic that we should work with and even to try to connect to prevent and to help to create new solutions. And even in difficult situations, as we as service designers, that could be even a person that doesn't have the role specific of service design, but wants to apply service design, can make the difference exploring and listening the context and connect and provide solutions that can be tested and improved during uncertainty moments. So we usually face different situations and different moments. And I think that if we want to create something, we should be a bridge and we need to challenge that moment. And that brings me where I'm right now. I start to work with a bank to help to create this innovation system in Peru because I wanted to improve the connection, not just with the client, even with the employees. And at the end, right now I'm working in Italy with this company that we are developing technological solutions with the startups, but at the same time with big companies. And I'm happy to learn more about the culture in Italy so I can even be this bridge that for me is connecting right now with more people and more services. So to conclude, uncertainty is always with us in personal or general situation, as I told you when I decided how to be a service designer, and then with COVID. But it's important that we as service designer open our minds and explore and discover how to work with it. And that in that way, we can make that big things happen. At the same time, make service design part of your daily life. You don't know like how can you explore with these eyes, and maybe you will gain even more experience. And even service design can work in different fields, not just in technology. We can work in different situations and just explore if you want to learn more and focus on what you want to be and just make the change. Be this bridge. Well, that's all. Thank you.
That was so insightful and inspiring, Maria. Thank you so much again for being with us today. I will join you back again at the end for the Q&A round. Our next speaker is Nia. Hello, Nia. We are really excited to hear you today. We are looking forward. Hi, Nia. We are looking forward to
Hi,
hear you today.
Rita. Hi.
Hi. So the stage is all yours. Please go ahead and start your presentation and share your experiences.
Awesome. Just give me a sec so I can share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen, please. Can you double check if you can see my screen? Yeah? Can you let me know in the chat? Okay, perfect. So, hi everybody. I'm so glad to be here today with you. And my talk is going around navigate service design beyond the design sea. And just to double check that everybody knows my name, hola, soy Nia. Thank you for the warm welcome, Ishida. And currently I'm taking this call from Lima, Peru. I'm a product design lead at Continuum HQ, a design firm with a focus on making Latin America become a hub of innovation and technology business. Today, we lead the development of products and services in banking, future of work, and health. I have more than 10 years living in the intersection of customer experience, design, and operations in fields like education, NGOs, fashion, tourism, and finally, innovation. I've explored these fields as a UX UI designer, service designer, design ops lead, and now as a product lead. And when the amazing opportunity to be here came up, I started to think that infamous question of what would you say to your younger self, the younger Nia, as a recommendations to thrive in the design and service design industry. And after a few coffees and AM walks for a couple of days listening to Bad Bunny, I came up with 3 elements that kept me thriving, connecting, and building relationships with people that do not have the so-called label of designers, but are key for me for my role to be successful. Those 3 things allow me to go from living in a design bubble all by myself and go from generating chaos and tensions with my stakeholders or other companies' areas kind of looking like this to finally have the "We Are All in This Together" song as soundtrack most of the time. And just to begin, the first reflection that I had, it was that as a matryoshka, service design is nested design. This in the sense that service design will require us to go beyond the mentality of focusing on the final or internal user that compounds a service blueprint or a journey map. We gotta keep in mind that the service blueprint also has another user taken in consideration. Those are the stakeholders that might be the ones approving or disapproving organizational changes and bureaucratic stuff to make your design and proposal real. And if that is the case, and we all can agree with it, this is very relevant. We should not forget that stakeholders are still users, and we must be as user-centric as we will be with our final user. And this is key to understand because to be part of the team, we gotta be the team. We got to understand and keep the same idea with the user that our product will be ready when our user needs are 100% satisfied. But given that the only constant is change, this has a direct impact in user needs. They will be constantly changing. Same happens with the needs of our stakeholders. That's why it doesn't matter how much protocolar and formal information you will receive in your company's onboarding. You better rely on 2 elements that are essential in design. First one is active listening. The second one is curiosity. And actually, Maria used a picture that I really like. And it will lead us to an analogy of this classic service design picture where we distinguish between front and backstage and behind the scenes. And as important to understand backstage and the behind the scenes in the journey is, it is important for us to understand strategy, the evolving strategy we are crafting and pushing forward in the company, but also the people behind the strategy. And this is when we will activate much more our user-centric perspective, try to understand who are they, what keeps them awake at night, what are their hopes. And all of these can be reliable following research through one-on-one virtual coffees that you might have with them, for example, or even desktop research through our strategic plans or other documentation that you might find can be helpful to understand their perspective. And with that, keep it constantly in mind because that will lead you to the next powerful move. And that is that service design is a film, not just a frame or a picture. Service design gives us the superpower of figure things out, double click and zoom on how unfolds over time. And basically feel that thought editing, we don't just paste things, but we make them gracefully flow. We as service designers or designers that use service design tools can be the ally who connect the dots that unleash and empower connections. And it is basically that we have access to the matrix and we can push forward to give it much more sense to become a trilogy and stay relevant through time, just like Matrix and Keanu Reeves. All the information you are gathering in the previous point, it will be meaningful if you are able to develop and foster connections. Not to only be another repository of info, but that can walk, not just to be informed. So here are two questions that should trigger possible actions in you. The first one is, how can you elevate connections in the organization? And the second one is, how can you decentralize connections? Meaning that how can you, with all the visibility that you just gained with information and even with all your day-by-day activities, can create a pollination of those connections in other areas to stop being silos. And what I would suggest here to tackle is related with this reference. Probably some of us have heard about Normandy because of our history classes, or because we watched Dunkirk by the great Christopher Nolan and where our truly Harry Styles cast as well. But the reason why I bring this reference is because we need to find our beachhead. That person, that area that can make us gain more traction within people that are non-designers. And a beachhead market aims to start small but with ambition. A small market as a starting point to build our strengths and market positioning to grow, but which little by little prepare us to capture adjacent markets. This market has specific characteristics that make it an ideal market to sell a new product or service, and in our case, a new mindset and approach for the organization. Now, I will leave you with this reflection. With all the info you have empathized for your organization, who could be your beachhead market? Or even if we want for this to sound friendlier, who could be your beachhead ally? And that connects with my last reflection. The actions we take through service design basically is like going through an MRI. We will have a very detailed picture with batch structure that will allow us to assess the organization, the process, the product, the service. And actually, what service design is going to do is going to reveal things that are missing. And that leads us to our third point. And that's how we can look out for service design tools as power-ups. Use them to cover gaps, reduce risk, or have a 2.0 version of what we have by now in our organization. And having this positive approach will allow us to avoid an organization generating antibodies to the methodology or to the project. Whereas if you frame it as I have something that could boost your process, it is much friendlier and could get you better buy-in. Now, for example, let's focus on our blueprints. A blueprint beyond mapping channels, artifacts, journeys, etc., can bring you 3 benefits to pitch to your stakeholders. First one, it's documentation. And we probably know and we'll probably agree how painful documentation can be and how bad the famous bus factor could be. Where if someone gets involved in an accident or in vacations or holidays, how much information will be unavailable just because that person will be out of the office? Make this a short-term goal for your stakeholders, a short-term benefit, where you can power up documentation of process, strategy, etc., to the organization and improve their way of work now more than ever when we are living asynchronous and remote work. A second benefit is that depending on the gaps we might find with our tool, we can extrapolate and predict customer feedback because we're mapping the pains of the user in our blueprint as maybe. This becomes accurate to give proactive heads up and consolidate quick wins until we buy time and buy in to develop a more realistic strategy from the organization. This becomes a midterm goal and impact for sure. That leads us to the third one, which is future strategy. And this focuses on how we can push for a sustainable strategy that can fill up the blanks that we are already finding. This becomes for sure a long-term goal to be realistic. And that's why this approach is ideal to look it up and leave a trace of it because most likely we will have restrictions of time, effort, and budget until we consolidate more buy-in of our stakeholders. An example of this could be with bold moves towards the user, the final user, or even to question and rethink things inside the organization. And it takes time to move the big white elephant in the room. So be patient with this. At the end, keep track of these 3 elements. That do not forget that there are still users. Be as user-centric as you'll be with your final user. Be the ally who connect the dots, unleash and empower connections. And lastly, service design tools as power-ups. Use them to cover gaps, reduce risk, or have a 2.0 version of what you have by now in your organizations. Think of all of these just like a massive puzzle, where it's much better to involve people and co-create change in that way that they will feel that are being heard, taken in count and in consideration. And with that, we will be able to hopefully say we're all in this together, son, as the initial soundtrack of this talk. Most of the time, as I said. Thank you. Here are my contact info. If by any chance you want to keep this chat in LinkedIn, or maybe if you want to have like a virtual coffee with me. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Nia. That was such an interactive presentation. And of course, we all are in together here. I really appreciate you giving us a talk today. I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, and I am sure all of our audience have also done. You have inspired so many of us today. I'll connect back again with you for the question answer round at the end. Our third speaker is Mattia. Mattia, welcome to the stage. I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. You can start your presentation. You have all the stage. Welcome, Mattia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
yes, that's correct. Pronounce it. Yeah, let me share my screen. Oops. Oh, yeah, glad to be part of it since we're on all of this together. But today I'm going to talk to you about my experience from mutual acceleration to the public sector. And I'm really glad to be here today. So my name is Mattia. I'm Italian and I live in UK. And he's my 6 years now. As an Italian, of course, I love food. I'm in love with vanilla gelato, but I'm also a triathlete. But I'm not here for that today. I'm here because I'm also a service design consultant. I work at Capgemini Invent, which is an IT consultancy with offices worldwide. We have one in London, Holborn, and that's the picture that you see here. So I would say that most of my career as a service designer could be associated with mutual acceleration and the public sector. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today. But it's going to be very practical. So hopefully you would get, by the end of it, a feeling of what's like working in these two settings, what I've learned, what's the difference between them, and also how the role of the service design will bring value in these two spaces. Maybe some of you might also get a chance to emphasize with my journey in the future. Not before telling you how I got to service design. So I trained as a product designer, and I was working as a product designer actually. So I designed physical products. I graduated from ISIA Roma Design in Italy. I did a BA in industrial design, and this is one of the products that I used to design. It's actually a wine cooler. So there's a bottle to cool, a wine bottle inside to cool. But since I've always been interdisciplinary and curious, I learned other things. One of them was graphic and motion design. I created a series of videos for Push UX and also the graphic for them back in 2018. And also I learned a lot in the web and UI design space. So how I got to service design, as I was designing products, I then realized that what I was designing was just a tiny bit of a complex web of things. There's the branding of a product. There's how the user gets to interact with the product. There is the business model. There is the service system that it's around that. And there's a bunch of other stuff. And as seen holistically, they need to function in the same direction. So I wanted to know more and do more, and also be able to coordinate all these things and look at the problem from a more holistic point of view. I'm pretty sure Maria also mentioned that. And yeah, there were so many things that I would like to know and do. It's like when you're at a buffet and you feel like you want to eat everything. But jokes aside, to me, it was about these two things. So curiosity and complexity. So when I visited the Royal College of Art back in 2015, I heard Nick Delian, who was the director of the service design course, talking about it. I found it very, very fascinating. And I thought, service design could give you the tool to help you understand and harness this level of complexity. So I joined the course later. And because of my background, my approach as a service designer has always been very, very visual, very material. And in a way, service design gave me the mindset to apply all these skills following frameworks that went from circular economy to lean UX to speculative design. And that's probably a thing that I've realized later. So if I were to give you one tip that I would give myself when I started to my career in service design, that's probably that one. Sounds like stupid, but ask yourself and define what you're good at, because then you start from there and you find your role, your expertise in your team, and that will help you define also your approach and help you understand how to pitch yourself to companies. And also by defining what you're not good at, you can then rely on the skills of other members of a team and also understand where you need to grow. And you can do that by asking feedback to your client. You can do that by asking feedback to your peers. Example, at Capgemini Invent, we do within my team a retro workshop every month to see how we can improve. So after my graduation, I started to work at Exploratory. which is the lab of the service design program. And I worked together with other designers that graduated from the service design program in different years. Was a good a service designer? Probably not. I was a service designer with good UI and visual skill. And I was involved in this 3-year research project with Alpha Health. Alpha Health was a Telefonica moonshot. So Telefonica is a telecommunication company. Here in UK, they own O2, but I think it's a worldwide company. Now Alpha Health became Core Health, which is a independent spin-out company. And in this project, we developed a different sort of frameworks and toolkits that help the client explore future services visions for the digital mental health space. And we help them accelerate, in a way, this moonshot. A moonshot essentially is that there's a wicked challenge, a distant future that you want to achieve. For us, the moon, in a way, was the opportunity to help different people around the world who needed mental health services. And you create the framework, you create a program, a process to get there faster. So the shoot indeed was the way that you get there. In our sense, was a design-led approach to tackle such a wicked problem and distant future. We did that by first envisioning scenarios of the future. And this is the part in which we created stories that described possible futures. And we created also a series of challenges, so statements that asked how might we tackle such a future problem. And then we started to explore future service visions. And so we ideated services that might emerge in extreme scenarios and will help address the challenges that we identify previously. So we presented all these visions to the client, and we ran a workshop where we discuss about the implication of the services, when we discuss what impact this will have on people and the world in the future. Then they selected a few of them, and then we turned those concepts into more tangible artifacts to explore opportunities and the implications of these futures. So we created landing pages and advertised them on Facebook. And we did that because we wanted to test the desirability and also which features would be more appealing, who would be the people using those services, and everything without having developed or produced any sort of product or service in concrete terms. Then we presented those to the client. We did a service safari, and the client then selected those concepts that were more in line with the strategy. And then we started to turn those concepts into live services. So they were, in a way, this minimal viable version of their future potential. And we developed and built functional services that most of the cases were apps to test with real people in the market and see how they would engage with it, what value they will bring, and most critically, the impact that they would have. We built Hold. The project that I got involved was this first app that help you self-reflect by chatting with yourself. We first did a beta version on a web app and then developed iOS and Android app. I also curated the UI and the branding and worked on the report eventually. But then soon after, I decided to move on, as I thought was good to get some experience in a consultancy firm, and also because I wanted to be better at other things other than making. So the first thing that I've noticed when I joined Capgemini was that. So on a moonshot acceleration, I spent most of my time making things. in a consultancy, it's about communication. It's equally important to be able to communicate what's best for your clients, as well as what's the value that what you're doing. In some cases, also what service design is. That's key for us. And also, what I mean by communication is also stakeholder management. So being able to establish a good relationship with the clients, set meetings with them in an efficient manner, and working in a consultancy helped me personally grow a lot on that space, and grow in general. So when I joined Capgemini Invent, I started to work for the public sector, and consulted NHS for NHS Digital. NHS Digital, it's the organization that develops and operates the national IT and data services to support health and care in England, the National Health Services and NHS. And Capgemini Invent, which is this large global IT consultancy that I mentioned, there's like 280,000 employees worldwide, 1,000 in UK about. What we do there is we work we design services in an agile fashion for both private and public organizations, and we follow a user-centered approach. So we put the user at the center, at the core of our problem. We work in squads, so multidisciplinary team. The size of the squad might vary, and so within each squad we would find service designers sometimes, user researchers, business analysts, data architect, and delivery manager usually manage the team. Not all of them, and it depends, by the size of the team, by the requirements of the clients. And it's a multidisciplinary team. So things that I've learned more than my previous experience in Scrum team, you need to coordinate with different people. There's dependencies, there's blockers, and you need to plan together with the rest of the team a coordinated delivery strategy. But on top of everything, multidisciplinarity to me means that you are an expert. You're an expert in service design. You're an expert in user-centered design activities, which sounds scary because it makes you feel alone. You're alone in all of this, and in a way, you're like, how can you not be user-centered? How can you not think about the user? But after a while, I've discovered that actually within a team, people have different backgrounds, different expertise. So it's your role to be the advocate for the user, for their problems, and be sure that you fulfill their needs, their problems. So your role is to communicate that, and that's how those tools, the customer journey maps, the service blueprint, user personas, user stories turn out to be very useful. And believe me, since also service design is not that known, people would be very impressed of what you could produce, and will look at you, will look at your output and yourself. So your service blueprint, your personas, as probably I would look at a dish of lasagna. So sorry, it's dinner time in UK, but just to give you an idea of the sort of projects I got involved. So they varied in terms of nature, and they lasted from 3 to 6 months. I went from project to improve the interoperability of IT system between pharmacy, optometry, dentistry, ambulance, and community services. Improve the digitalization at scale. Help define the future of a platform of services that support the IT infrastructure for about 21,000 NHS organization. And currently I'm working on a service to allow patient to take informative decision on the treatment of data. So project that would have an impact at scale. That's probably the main differences between those two. And one of the fundamental things that I know I got to know when I started to work for the public sector is the GDS standard, which is a framework that supports the development of consistent and user-friendly, if you want to, end-to-end government services, digital services, because GDS stands for Government Digital Services. So these principles go from the more user-centered design one. So understand the users, be sure that you understand what's the problem that you're trying to solve, be sure that the service works online, offline, be sure that you make your service accessible and inclusive. As a service designer, you would be more responsible for these points. But there are also points that are more related to the methodology of work, and those that are more technical. So for technical architects and developers, making sure you use an open code. For interaction designer, maybe use a library of components and design systems, so you don't need to design the look and feel from scratch. And there's a process that you need to follow before going live with your service. And at the end of each of these phases that you see here, you are assessed against the points of the GDS standard that I've shown you. And if you pass, your service can move to the next phase. So for instance, discovery, which is equivalent of the first diamond of the double diamond, you emphasize with the problem and the context, and then you need to define what's the problem for the user in a way, and that you're trying to solve. So then you go to the assessment. Is it clear what the problem you're trying to solve? Have you been inclusive in your research? How? If you pass, then you go to alpha, where you test your assumptions and different options, different concepts to different prototypes. As you're assessed, is your solution accessible? How? And so you pass to, if you pass, you go to beta, and beta, you start to build your service for real. So user can actually use it and learn what works, what doesn't, and then make adjustments before going live. And live is about maintaining your service and making improvements based on the user needs. So I would summarize these two experiences with these two words: uncertainty, and I've heard that word many times today. So yeah, on one side, in motion acceleration, you face a lot of uncertainty, and it's hard to measure the success. So because you don't know if your solution, if the solution that you tried to build will work. So it's key to have a framework to navigate this uncertainty, and have some KPIs, so key performance indicators, to define what success is like in different phases of your project. And governance in the public sector, and that governance is designed to avoid that level of uncertainty. So you would have to, there's senior stakeholder that should be involved throughout your project, and that needs to sign off plans and outputs. Sometimes you need to attend forums and share your research and plan to them. In a way, if you work in a moonshot, you will perceive this as being very slow, but it's necessary because of the size of the organization. So it's a great learning experience, and to understand what it means to work in such a large organization, and also to learn how to navigate this complex network of stakeholders. So just to recap, almost done. And on one side, you have to be prepared for a lot of uncertainty. Be prepared to take on different roles, different tasks, even those that are not probably you're not really knowledgeable on, and be prepared to make a lot of stuff. In the public sector, you would have, yes, a lot of governance, but you be the experts in your team, and everyone would value what kind of output you would be able to produce as a service designer. and you will learn a lot in under the communication and the stakeholder management point of view. And I wish you all can experience both, to be honest. But first, consider this. So, what are you good at? And I think I'm done. And I'm gonna start sharing my screen.
Hi, Matya. That was an amazing presentation. There were so many industrial people hooting for you, and there are so many comments which says
Yeah.
these presentations have made them hungry because there are so many food coming on. First the gelato and then the lasagna. So I would like to call all of the speakers on the stage now. It's the Q&A round. So I will be asking some common questions. So all three of you can take your time and come and answer them wherever you feel like. So I'm waiting for Nia as well. Yes, all of you guys are here. So ready for the question answer round. So we have few very basic questions. I will quickly ask them to you. So first question is, I am building my website. Could you guys share how to present your projects on the website? The flow or the tool or needs to show, like, you guys want to share some experiences, some thought process on this?
I don't know who goes first. Maybe I will go first. It says my name, but then Mattia and Nia can help me too.
Yeah.
Of course, Mattia, with the gelato and the lasagna, I'm hungry now, and I will go after this meeting to eat lasagna and to buy some gelato here in Italy. In terms of a website, I think that the most important thing first is what you want to tell about the projects that you have. I think that it's even first storytelling, because depending of the project that you have, even the solutions that you were building, you need to focus what is the most important thing that you want to highlight. In this way, you can create the storytelling of the project that you have, even with the journey, even with the solutions like prototypes or maybe the mockups that you want to present, and see if that can work even in your website. And I think that that's the most important thing, the storytelling to develop. You can work in different platforms, definitely, but I think that the most important thing is the content and how you want that people remember your projects.
Absolutely. Nia and Matya, do you have anything to add on what Maria said?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think there's like two sides where you can look up these. One is the more pragmatic side that Maria just said, like about what are the tools that you can try. I've tried Webflow and I tried ReadyMag, and I think that they are very easy to use, and also they will give you like a new skill that it's becoming more relevant around no-code tools. But the other side, it's well tied on storytelling and growth. And I have like a couple of friends that they have developed their personal website not to look on new job opportunities, but to apply to masters. So that's a different way on how you can showcase your information if you're living in that episode in your life right now. But if you want to have like a 50-50% chances, your storytelling throughout your website should connect with those people that you're trying to catch with. So if it's like for masters or new job opportunities, try to think on what are those projects that can allow you to enter in those stages. So for example, for instance, if you are trying to go into a master's degree around visuals, yes, you're gonna put more volume on UI probably, but do not forget about the process behind that. And I think that's one of the main things that usually people don't take advantage of. Most of the people that are going to search for you, either for job opportunities or for masters, are wanting to understand your creative process and your design process rather than the result, rather than the deliverable. So what is the outcome or the general mindset that you are showing, and how versatile it could be for different industries? I think that those things are very key to push and move forward in your personal website. And the last but not least, personal brand. Actually, I try to deal with my logo and my colors and things like that. So I think that as you are getting more senior, you can give your identity more weight on that. That would be it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nia. Mattia, do you have anything to add into it?
No, I think they raise a good point. I mean, the fact that the website should showcase yourself. So depending on how you want to pitch yourself, you need to structure it in the best way as possible. Of course, I would look at it in a holistic point of view. So the thing about the branding that Nia was mentioning, yeah, definitely has to follow your view, has to follow what you want to convey to people. Generally, I would say there's one tip that I learned from my tutor at the RCA, J. Paul Neal. When you need to communicate something, think about a bottle of shampoo and the things that take your attention first. So you would have, maybe the logo would be highlighted first, and then what is it? Is it a shampoo? Okay, then what effect does that have? So think the same, use the same approach to pitch yourself and to pitch your project, I would say.
Great. The shampoo example was so good. Everyone can actually resonate with it. So the next question was, what work-related advice would you give to someone who is looking for his or her first job as a UX or a service designer? That first advice that you would give to the people who are stepping into the professional field. I can see that smile, Nia. Do you want to add something? I know there is somebody that you want to say.
Yeah, I can go. I think that top of mind, it's not about the craft, it's about the attitude. And usually, whenever you go inside the design industry, it's not easy to not fall into the imposter syndrome. So I would say just try to be a sponge. Like, capture every knowledge that you can, and also capture it by through the filters of the routes that you want to explore in the short term and midterm. Like, for example, I started like a design ops lead, and I wouldn't imagine that I would end up being a product lead. But in the very beginning, when I started, I tried to understand the process of design in very early stages, through innovation, and that really allowed me to start like crafting my path of growth. So I would say just to be curious and do not let that the imposter syndrome get you very quickly whenever you're starting your path in design.
Absolutely. Maria, Mattia, do you want to just add in something after what Nia said?
I mean, I don't want to repeat myself. Yeah, it's basically the tip that I've given throughout my presentation. So first, understand what you're good at will help you understand how to pitch yourself, and what you're not good at to make you learn how to improve. Because whoever is going to hire you need to know where you can leverage, on which skills they can leverage for you, and for them as a company. So yeah, nothing much to add.
Thank you, Mattia. Maria, do you have anything to add in?
Well, I think that Mattia and Nia say almost all. Like, okay, yes, absorb of the knowledge that you have. I mean, I came from a communication and marketing side, so about service design, I wasn't specialized in that. I started just to try to apply it in my daily life in the projects that I have. So even bring that curiosity to maybe the small projects that you have, and try to see it in the other way. Like, how, if I'm thinking more in a UI or UX view, how can I apply this in a project that I already work? And with that, you can even have more experience. Listen what your colleagues have to say, observe the context, and then see which areas would you like to explore more to get more experience and improve and create your path.
Absolutely. Improvement and curiosity and observation, these are like key steps to follow this. Gwen has sent a very cool question. She says, I loved that Mia presented what she would share to her younger designer self. So this question is from Mattia and Maria. What advice or words would you share with your younger self now about your career? Who want to jump first? Tell us about your younger self. Like, what made you come here?
Probably be more self-aware of what you are. Don't be afraid to chat to people and to showcase yourself. So I would say probably when I was younger, I was more I wasn't as confident as I was, but maybe I might be, different circumstances, and also because of the many things that you want to do, because you're not even sure about what you want to be, but getting to talk to people, you would get feedback and you would get the confidence that you need to get into the workspace, I would say.
Thank you. What about Maria?
In my case, I would say I will say to my younger self, allow to fail, because I think that even when I was working more, even in the communication and marketing side, I always try to be as perfect as I could, try to work correctly and follow all the things that I was working to improve it. So I think that when you're exploring even new paths, new career, and that's how I think that almost everyone jumps in this part, is okay, try and allow yourself to fail, because in that way you will learn even more. Don't feel bad if maybe you did it wrong, but you try it, and in that way you can learn even more things that you can imagine.
Absolutely, that completely makes sense. And these all steps that you guys are sharing your experiences, that a lot of our audience can resonate with you, and I'm sure they are learning from your experiences and they are learning from what you have shared. There's one question for Maria. It says, I love the practice of applying service design in the daily life. What advice do you have for doing so and making it as a habit?
Okay, how did I make it as a habit? The first thing that I said, in the question before, I took from projects that I did before, and I started to think, okay, if I try to think in the holistic way, what is missing? And I try to explore more. And then when I was working, even in the marketing area, and I needed to create, a communication strategy for something, I was thinking, okay, I know that they are saying who is my client, for example. So I started to put some steps behind, even if they don't ask me, but just a practice to myself. So I start to have it, that's a homework for me. Okay, I need to understand how this service arrived, this product arrived here with me. So in that way, I try to learn more. And even in my daily life, maybe I went to a restaurant or I went to a new supermarket and I saw something that I didn't like. So I was starting to think, okay, how does it work? And try to create myself if I was working here, how should I improve it? And in that way, I try to be more curious about it and do some small exercise for myself. And I see that even a lot of designers, I heard this for visual designers, that they usually, even when they try to make paths in a specific role in visual design, they started to do some graphics or some illustrations that maybe it wasn't a project, but they had the curiosity to improve that. So I started to do that. Take this case of the supermarket, of the restaurant, and I started to create my project just for myself. So, okay, how should I redesign this? And that helped me to maybe to put it later in my portfolio and to show I didn't do for this company, but I'm curious and I think that this could work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Maria. You have told how at each stage you have taken your experience and you have tried to build around that. You have tried to learn from your experiences and try to think how it would be if you would have been working there. That's really a very good practice like for everyone to implement in their daily life. The next question is for everyone. Mattia, Nia, and Maria, all the three of you. Storytelling is very important to designers. So I wonder, do you have any advice on sharing how they should have storytelling in their project reviews, how they should approach their interviews? Who want to jump first?
Maybe I can start.
Sure.
Yeah, so a thing that I've found very useful is to first show your portfolio to a friend, a colleague that works in design at least, and they will ask you question that normally would come up in an interview probably, and in a way you work in like as if you were a startup, because you're pitching your product in a lean way to someone, and you iterate that. So the portfolio wouldn't, and your projects wouldn't be the final version of it, maybe an MVP, and then you can start improving it as you get feedback. And the second one, of course, it's about learning what company you're having that discussion with, who's that person, and tailor your storytelling based on that. Means that you need to know, if you were in their shoes, what would be the thing that they might be interested in yourself, so they would ask you. So then think about the questions and try to see how you would answer to those.
Thank you. Nia and Maria, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in. Just building on what Mattia just said, I would say that less is more. And I think that usually what we do in portfolios, very in our early stages as designers, is like we put everything there and just the more the merrier, but it's not like that. Like, you gotta play the hits. Like, if you have one party and you want to be that party to be the bomb, you just need to play the hits. Do not like overwhelm people with a lot of information, because that would make them think that you are not prioritizing what are the main things that you're bringing to the table. So that's the first one. And the second one is that they're not going to be bad portfolios forever. Like, you're going to get feedback, you're going to retry comments from everybody. So do not settle on, okay, this is the one and only portfolio I'm going to have. It's like, no, you're going to have this one, and probably in 6 months you're going to update it and you're going to create a new version of it. Or maybe you just found your style, your personal style on how you want to bring your narrative, your brand, or even like new projects. And last but not least, if you have any chances on doing freelance projects or just personal projects that you want to do for fun, that actually helped me a lot to diversify a little bit my portfolio. Usually I put like my companies or full-time jobs projects, but once I started like working towards personal or playground projects that I start putting it in my portfolio as well, because that gave them a different perspective of my 9 to 6 p.m. role, and I can showcase my playground roles as well. So I would say, do not only stick with your 9 to 6 or full-time projects, also put the ones that you are using in your playground time as well.
Absolutely. So for the audience, connect, network, take up extra projects, take up freelance project, and work and build your portfolio. Maria, do you have something to add?
Just like adding what Nia and Matthias said, it's important, like, keep it simple. If you know what are the fields that maybe you are interested to work with and the companies that maybe can check your profile, okay, show the projects that you think that are more even related to that area, and try to keep it as simple as you can. For example, if your mom can see it, or if someone should see it in just two lines, what should be the catching point that they need to see in the project to say, okay, I will read more? I want to check more. And yes, what Nia says about like projects not from your current work. For example, I work with a community in Lima. So when we were organizing some projects or when we develop projects with the Global Service Jam, and I think that it was interesting, I just asked the group and said, okay, I will put it in my portfolio too, because this is the field that I would like that someone can see it and see the potential that we can work with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I guess we are about time. Thank you so much, Maria, Martia, and Mia, for taking out time, for showing your presentation, for showing your experience. Thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for coming in, listening to them, and sending in questions. I am definitely sure that you have, the speakers have inspired a lot of students around the globe, and the people who are looking for transitioning into service design, who are looking to have a change or stepping the first step in service design. For the audience, don't forget to connect with them over LinkedIn. If you have any questions, just drop them a message in LinkedIn. Their LinkedIn are there in the chat. I would really like to thank Chongyung and Ashley also to handle the entire backstage and making this session very smooth. And this marks the end of the Young Professional Talk. But we have a lot of more interesting events coming up, curated just for you guys. So stay tuned, look for the stages, look for the sessions that's coming up. So our next event that's coming up is speed dating. Go to the network button on your left hand side of the screen and connect with students and professionals from all over the world. So I'll say take this as a challenge and see how many people you guys can connect in next 60 minutes. So this is the great platform for you guys to meet professionals from around the world and learn and ask them questions and connect, network. SDN have given us this platform. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, and keep looking for the events and stay tuned. Thank you.